Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our next session on in continuation of the series for teachers value orientation, and we'll be continuing with the philosophy of education, and we'll introduce the next topic, which are developmental milestones. And as I've already mentioned, if there is any question from the previous session, you are all more than welcome to share it here so that uh, we can share it here and discuss together and take it from there. So we'll start with our prayer as we do normally. So please join. O Lord, take my love and let it flow in fullness of devotion to thee. O Lord, take my hands and let them work incessantly for thee. O Lord, take my soul and let it be merged in one with thee. O Lord, take my mind and thoughts and let them be in tune with thee. O Lord, take my everything and let me be an instrument to work for thee. So, welcome back. And today we will start with a little bit of revision, if I may say it so that we can get the flow right. So, last time we discussed about various philosophies which are underlying of the value education system. So we have seen that these philosophies are the basis and the foundation on which the whole concept of value education stands. And the first one which we had looked at was unity in diversity. I didn't get any questions so far, so I presume that people have understood and you are able to implement. I had even requested people to share with me their journey of the planning of implementation. So, how do they wish to implement these programs, and how do they see that these programs can be utilized in their own lives, in their own development, self development, and becoming better as an example for the society and for the children specifically. So, unity and diversity was a concept which explained that there is a unifying factor between all these visible diversity. So, whatever we see, there is an underlying unity. Like if you look at the basis of every creation, there are five elements that unifies us. If you look at different colors of people, different countries of people, people in different countries, you see that there is a commonality of humanity. So, as a human being, we are common. So, this attitude to find unifying factors, find the unity in all these apparent diversity is the basis. And here, values help to do that. And with this kind of concept, a teacher can very well go into the society in the classroom and treat all the children alike, treat every children as their own, and shower their concern and love for everybody. This is the same philosophy. If you follow it in your life, then there will be no question of disagreements, fights, or any such misunderstanding, because you will see the diversity around you in the social system also has a unifying factor, that we belong to this human race, we belong to one community, we belong to one country. So there are a lot of unifying factors if we start thinking from that point of view. So that was unity in diversity. Then we looked at the journey of human value. We also understood how everything we do represents our core attributes, which are latent and inherent in us, and they don't change with time, place, and circumstances. Those latent core attributes of ours we call as human values. These values define us, these values create us, build us, and present us in the true sense as human beings. And there we looked at the journey of values. The first and foremost was to identify who we are. Who are we? At what age? What happens to us? So we are a human being, we are a child, we are a teenager, we are adult, we are parent, we are whatever roles we play and define the truth basis of who we are. And the more clarity we get, the more conviction we get about our truth, we get to act according to that truth, and that becomes right conduct or righteousness. The experience which we enjoy, an experience that we experience from this act of right conduct is reflected by peace. And to sustain this whole process of self inquiry, right conduct, and the peaceful contentment within us is only possible through love. So, love being the starting point and the ending point and the journey itself. And the perfect state of living in which we understand our equation with the nature, we understand our role in the nature, as we understand the optimal utilization of resources to the best of our capabilities and to maximize our potential, that becomes nonviolence. So, how do we practice nonviolence? We saw there was a value approach was 3HV. So, how do we approach this whole value system? We have to understand that whole value system must have the synchronization. The applicability of human values comes from the 3HV concept, in which we learn to collaborate, integrate, and assimilate these three head, heart, and hand in one. And the more and more we understand the importance of these three and the collaboration of these three, we have achieved our value orientation. So, practically looking at it from 3HV point of view, whatever we think, we must validate with our heart. So, speaking the truth which is apparent to us may not be right and appropriate unless it is validated by our heart, which is our emotion, which is our empathy, which is our concern. And then the action must happen. So, unless these three are collaboratively working, we won't achieve our true humanity, our true identity of human being. So, this is where we had taken the journey up to. So, when you look at this whole process, as we saw before, from truth to nonviolence and then to 3HV, this 3HV also has another shade of it, and that also reflects our being. As we said, head, heart, and hand. If you look at it, this is body, mind, and the soul. And this aspect is also very, it's an alignment with the same previous thought, wherein we look at life and understand that whatever we are doing must cater to these three. And only if we cater to all the three elements that we will arrive at satisfaction and fulfillment. For example, if you keep working and most of our action is actually feeding our body, we want to have good house, good car, good food. See, all of that is focused on the body. Some percentage goes to the mind also. When we think of, reading some books, painting, intellectual discussions, and nurturing good thoughts, So all that thing leads to mind too. But you can imagine the proportionate time do we give to mind body. And unfortunately, very few people really focus on the soul aspect. And this whole thing is due to our, I don't know, you call it a misunderstanding or like misplaced understanding of the life. We unfortunately focus on activities and thoughts which provide us with commercial output, which gives us instant gratification, and that too on a physical level. So that is why you find that people, even if they make million, they still crave to make billion and not find contentment and satisfaction. People who have done PhDs and gained degrees still are not satisfied and content beings. So, in any direction, if you go, you find that even if I reach a peak in one area, a greatest example in the recent time was, the founder of Apple. If you look at him, his last days were a very good example that you reach a pinnacle of your career and still you make a statement that now I realize the importance of family and friends and that me time which you neglected in pursuit of excellence in one area. So if you do everything for body or even for body and mind and you neglect the soul or any one of them for that matter, the satisfaction, the fulfillment at the end won't be there. And hence the 3HV concept also highlights and leads us to thinking the importance of designing our programs, designing our life, disciplining ourselves so that we can cater to body, mind, and soul. So, when in the classroom we prepare programs for children, when we design our school activities, when we create our administrative programs, we also keep this in mind that is are we taking care of all the three aspects of the growth and development of the children or not? If we are not catering to all the three, then we are not able to, we will never be able to meet the requirement of our child's development. We'll never be able to create a fulfilled children. And that is the question which everybody must understand. So, from the value system, we understand the values are the full journey. Values are the journey, values are the means to arrive at a fulfillment program, and that is through this 3HV program. And the final philosophy, which we will discuss today, is sealing on desires. We call it, in short form, we call it COD, sealing on desire. This is another beautiful concept which lays down the protocol and the structuring of our conduct, how we should train ourselves and our children to live our lives. Now, the topic, the heading is sealing on desires. That's why we put the next question was need versus desire. So, what is a need and what is a desire? So, we'll break this sealing on desire first to understand these three words and then we take it forward. In a normal sense, we understand that need is something which you need, which you require for survival. So, these are not uh, negotiable. So you need air, you need food to survive. You need water. So this is not to be negotiated. You cannot say that how much, yeah, but you need air to an extent. You need food to an extent. And if you start hoarding or collecting that item more than you need, then it can be considered as desire. So, desire is an excess of need that we crave to arrive. Now, why do we have to worry about desires? Some people can counter argue about it that, hey, look, desire is needed because if you don't have desire, then growth won't happen. Correct? See, it's only because of desire that we are working, we are chasing, we are competing, we are trying to be innovative. So, desires are actually a trigger point for innovation, for growth, for development. But at the same time, we have been told and explained many times that, hey, desire is not good, control your desires. Desires can never be fulfilled. So there is a kind of conflict which keeps happening all the time in trying to understand that what is the right proportion and what kind of desire is applicable, good, and what is not. So if you really think about it, the desire is not bad, but when desire crosses a limit, it becomes bad. As somebody very beautifully, I was reading somewhere and he said, what is poison? And the answer was given, one of the saints have given this answer. He says, anything in excess is poison. See, if you're eating, you are hungry, it's an amrit, it's a nectar, because you are nourishing yourself, you're growing, fantastic. But if you overeat, then the same food becomes health issue for you. So anything in excess, if you do, that is actually harmful and can be classified as poison. So desires are like that. Desires up to a limit, they are perfectly needed and they are good actually. They give you the ambition, they give you the growth, they give you the trigger to innovate, to expand, to serve. But when the desire crosses a limit, and that limit in our cultural way, in a spiritual sense, we call it maryada. From the boundary of maryada, the maryada is actually a very typical Sanskrit word for which we do not have an English translation directly. So it encompasses the boundaries of respect, gratitude, decorum, all that put together is maryada. Your boundaries, your boundary of decorum, discipline, ethos, ethics, values, put together is maryada. So the boundary of maryada determines whether your desires are good or not good, whether your desires are applicable for growth or it is turning into a poison for yourself and the society. So the need and desire is very important to understand. Yes, need, no negotiation. You have to fulfill it. Desire, you have to think. You have to worry. And that is why the topic is sealing on desire. Mind you, it does not say curbing your desire or controlling your desires. It says sealing on desire. Now, that sealing is our cap. It's like the room has a ceiling. So similarly, the desires have a ceiling. So when you talk about ceiling, we understand that everybody has a different ceilings. See, for me to live, my 8 foot ceiling is fine. But if somebody is big, then he may require a bigger, higher ceiling. Somebody who is, has a different capacity, has a different ceiling. So the ceiling also depends on the people, the portfolio, the profile of each person. So everybody needs to define their own ceiling, what is applicable for us, and to what extent I can pursue my desires without losing focus from the purpose of my life and my fulfillment. As long as pursuing my desire does not deviate me from fulfilling my duties, my dharma, my right conduct in all the given portfolios that I have chosen to, as long as my pursuit of desires does not deviate me from the truth that I am pursuing, as long as it does not disturb the peace I am experiencing, then my desire is fine. So you can create your own sense of, checklists as to what is good for me, what is desire. I can pursue if I want to get a Mercedes Benz or a Cadillac or even a customized car for myself. Why not? As long as this chase is not contradicting or hindering my pursuing my truth, following my righteousness, and my internal peace of mind. So, all of that is allowed as long as I know how to keep myself safe. So, pursuing of desires is not wrong. That is why it's given ceiling on desire. So, you put your ceiling. Now, how do we teach this to our children? See, this is where the crux of parenting and teaching comes. So, how do we start initiating our children into these thoughts as to how do we teach them the importance of conservation, importance of collaboration, importance of nature, importance of interdependency of each other, and that we do from a very simple things like non-violence. I'll start from there and bring you here. Non-violence is taught as do not waste time, do not waste energy, do not waste food, and do not waste sorry, time, food, energy, and money, resources. So if you look at these three, four things, that is, if you give them these assignments depending on the age, and you teach them that how do they take care of resources, take care of time, take care of food, take care of energy, like don't exert, don't scream, you have indoor voice, you have outdoor voice. So there are so many techniques which teachers use to help our children to learn basic mannerism. So that's how we teach nonviolence to them, to reach optimization of their resources and abilities. So they understand how much is needed for their life, and the more they realize optimal, they will feel good about it. And if they waste food, they will feel hurt, and that is a stage towards the violence. So then they learn non-violence from not wasting food, they learn non-violence by not screaming, they will learn non-violence by not wasting water. So imagine if that hurt is experienced by them by wasting water, by wasting food, then such people can never hurt anybody in this world, because that starting is in their heart now. So then we move on to sealing on desires. And how do we teach them? We teach them by preserving, by controlling their small needs. It could be, like, okay, you have chocolate every once in a week, and you see somebody else in need, and we share that thought with the children. They have done, I can share with you hundreds of experience around the world where children have been practicing sealing on desire and helping the community and various places. For example, in Canada, we have a Satyasai school there. Their children once heard about water scarcity. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, they are privileged children, and they have not experienced, scarcity. For them to imagine water scarcity is very difficult. You can look at the movie, but it won't make you feel and understand what does it mean not to have water. What does it mean to walk miles before you can hit a water pond and a resource to drink and quench your thirst? It's not possible for them to fathom. So there was one boy called Ryan. He's a Canadian kid who got inspired and he built well in South Africa. He was a very small kid when he did that. And he was actually pulled by UNICEF and made an ambassador to promote that. And he used to travel the length and breadth of the country talking about his work. And being a kid talking to a kid, that inspired a lot of schools. So he was once invited to the school, and he interacted with our children, and he shared, and he showed some videos and some pictures. And after he left, the children and teachers were discussing about the whole thing. And it was very interesting that children started asking about what does it mean not to have water and all that. So teacher gave them more understanding, and they discussed about it. And the innocent children who were been brought up with the value system, even though they didn't understand the scarcity element, they might not have comprehended the whole depth of this problem, but they could empathize in their own innocent way, that my god, here we can drink half a bottle and toss it, and there is no scarcity. We have a water fountain flowing 24 hours. Anybody wants water, just go and drink it. So the thought does not arrive that there can be people and children around the world who are still struggling to get clean water. So these children started contemplating as to how we can help. So teacher said, sure, think about it, what you can. They discussed about it, and it seems they came up with a plan that why don't we build a well from our side. And the teacher did the research. I'm sure they helped each other. They did research and found out that somewhere around, say, around $2,000 was needed to build a well in one part of Africa. So they had identified a school area wherein they said, okay, we'll contribute and we'll help the children. So then the next question came, okay, how do we raise the funds? So children were very excited, but they all discussed ceiling on desire, and they said, no, this is your feeling, this is your sentiment. So the contribution must come from you. It should not come from your parent. So if you want to really make a difference in the life of your brothers and sisters in different parts of the world, then the contribution must be yours. So the children started thinking as to how do we raise fund without asking. And many thoughts came. And I'll give you a few examples. Like, it's so cute when a child goes to mother and says, Mom, I'm going to fix my room and I'll help you in the house chores. Can I get my pocket money? So the mom was like, why do you need money? He says, Mom, because I have to support my brother and sister in Africa. We want to make a well for them. One boy goes to his father and says, Dad, you promised me that you will give me an Xbox. In those days, Xbox started coming out, and the first model was coming. So the father had promised the son that if you get a first grade, I'm going to give you an Xbox as a gift. So he goes to the father and says, Dad, can I get an Xbox? Instead of Xbox, can I get money? So it used to cost like $100 at that time in Canada. So he said, can I get $100? So the father said, why do you need so much money, $100? And the child explained. So like that, every child started going and telling the parents that I want to help you. Now, in lieu of my help, please give me my money. And he said, I'll work hard. And somebody went and said that, Dad, you take me every week to ice cream parlor or a chocolate. I won't take for next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That money you give me. So like that, people started cutting their needs. So one dad got very excited and said, son, I'm very happy that you guys think like that. So if you get first grade, I'm not only going to give you an Xbox, I'm going to give you money also. So I'll give you money and I'll give you Xbox also. So the son said, no, dad, I don't want Xbox, because if I take Xbox, then it won't be my contribution. We are practicing ceiling on desire. Now it is so cute to hear from these children how they start, getting emotional and thinking about these things. And mind you, they raise the funds. They really raise the funds internally in the school. and they did it. And the child, in fact, that child did score first, and the father gave him 100 dollars before that. And on that day, he refused Xbox because he said, "That's my promise, and it is out of my contribution that I want to help my brothers and sisters in different part of the world." Now look at the impact this thought comes when you start expanding yourself, when you start thinking beyond the boundaries of your own needs, and your desire becomes so sanctified. Now you want to satisfy your desire by sealing on desire. This is a beauty. So when you start sharing your love in that manner, so that is where this concept becomes very important. So then we see that desires need to be validated. They need to be understood as to what is important and to what extent I can pursue them. Then, once the desire starts going beyond, then we have to also be careful that we do not suppress them. Suppression is like a balloon, if you have a filled balloon, if you want to press the balloon, what happens? The balloon will either burst or bounce back. But sublimation is like soft diffusion, a small little hole, and the air comes out. So all our desires who are uncontrolled, keep in mind, do not make your children or yourself suppress them, but keep analyzing by, as they say, pariprashna, the qualifying the questions. If you keep qualifying your desires and you keep questioning about it, that way we will understand the sublimation process, and that sublimation will help in moderating and regulating our desires. So this is what the sealing on desire approach comes. And if you look at now the whole concept of COD, it is not restricting to think, it is not restricting to expand, to have desire to grow, ambition. It is actually regulating it by understanding our own pros and cons, our own strengths and weaknesses, to understand what is my ceiling and how I can contribute to the world, to the society. So this is the philosophies of education. Now we have looked at the concept of what are these foundations on which the values in action, values in education program is based on. Now, using these foundations, now we have to do some activities and look at some goals. Now, what do we want to achieve are termed as milestones. Now, many researchers in education have come up with various milestones for children for different ages. And UNICEF has summarized it as a research element. They summarized this whole concept and gave us 6. With our own little research, we added 2 more to it. And for last 10 years, we have been working on these 8 milestones. These 8 milestones, I look at it as the ingredients which we need to put in to blossom the full character of our children. So these ingredients, we call them as learning developmental milestone. Now, as we move to that direction, I'm going to give you a minute just to look at if you have any questions so far, whatever we have discussed, and if is there any questions, if anybody has it, then you're welcome to ask, welcome to share. So I'm trying to read and see, go through this model to see that if there is anybody who has asked me any question. Kulpreet says, if we think of taking action element first while planning the lesson, it helps widen the perspective of the learner. Sure. Thanks for the statement, Kulpreet. But okay, any questions so far? If there is, please feel free to write here as we go forward in sharing with you the milestone elements. So these are called areas of development. Now, these developmental milestones, they are, we short form, we call it AODs basically. They are areas of development. And these are these 8. So if you look at these terms, are universally accepted terms, and they have been compiled by UNICEF. Only the self-reliance and human values is added by us with our own implemented research. So wherever in the schools we have tried to implement, we realized just to highlight it and give importance, we have separated them. And these are the 8 areas. And we look at them one by one slowly, just to give you a little quick update on these. Let me take you through this journey. This is first we start with spiritual. Spiritual is what they call in education. There are we break the education learning into 2 basic broad heads: secular and scholastic and non-scholastic, secular and spiritual education. So in secular education, as I had discussed before also, all your academic work, all your arts and craft and everything comes there. In the spiritual realm, we discuss focus mostly on the morality education, ethics, morals, value systems, and the human values which I talked about. So all that comes in spiritual aspect. So this is one developmental area. Second comes the social development. Social is when the child has developed, like has known himself, how does he interact with his social society, his surroundings. So his interactiveness, his interdependence with each other, with the whole surrounding, is the social interaction, social development. Emotional development is when the child starts emotionally controlling and regulating it's himself or herself. How does he control his emotion? How does he express himself? Does he have the right words and expressions to share it empathetically, share it, keeping the mind in others' feelings, not to hurt? So those elements come into emotional development. Creative is an aesthetic way of expressing itself. So once you develop that element of creativity in you, and that creative development allows the child to share his growth, his learning, his joy, his love in a most aesthetic manner. And it is very unique to each person, and that's why it's called creative. Then comes the intellectual element. Under intellectual, they have classified all the subject academic learning elements which are directly responsible for our intellectual growth, which gives us the right knowledge, the right tools, which helps us with the skills to churn, to develop, and to grow. So that is an intellectual growth. So all your subjects, your math, your physics, your English, your arts, your everything comes here. Then comes physical. Obviously, without a good physical body, you cannot pursue anything else. So how to keep the body fit? How do you understand your whole, the physics of your body, the biology of your body, and you see how you develop it, how you keep it healthy, and not depend on medications much, but to have good habits of food and physical fitness. Then comes human values, which I have already introduced to you. And here we also see the implementation of values. There are many programs through which we help in implementing values in the school curriculum and in the school administration. Then comes self-reliance. This is another very important element for children. Hands-on, to live hands-on, to understand their involvement and responsibility towards the whole system. Nothing is taken for granted. Children must be able to appreciate what they have, and children must take responsibility to to manage the show. So, in fact, whole school's functioning is kind of shadowed by children, and then ultimately we allow them to manage the school in a way. So they run the support system. So in fact, in our whole planning, the whole school is developed and maintained by children, be it gardening, plumbing, electrical, kitchen, if you have a hostel, or if you even have a kitchen in the school. So there are every aspect of the schooling of education is also looked at from the children's perspective. And children also go into the society, because society is responsible for the school to grow and develop. So it is a very comprehensive way of looking at how the children become self-reliant, and that also increases their self-confidence, which is the foundation for their self-actualization. So these are the 8 elements. So now we will look at it one by one and understand it. So here also I'll give you a small little task if you are ready. So the task is very simple. As we discuss each element, I would like you all to think what activities per se you are doing in your school for developing each and every area of development. And I would appreciate if you can share with us the different programs you might have which will fit into these sections. So that way we can together learn and share from everybody and see that these 8 areas are taken care of. So all of you can join this journey and then see that what you have done to create an environment, what you have done to implement these things, programs, which are helping in developing these 8 areas. I hope it's clear. So we will point it again. But to start, let us look at one by one. We have this child and development. So we'll see. So here I would like you all to do something like this chart. I've already done it for your benefit, but it will be nice to see your words and your approach to it. So I'm going to mention you AODs, which is your 8 areas, and then understand the values perspective to it. Values perspective is, what does spiritual development means from a values perspective? What physical development means from values perspective? If you do your research, if you Google it, you will see these areas of development, and your definitions, you will find them are from academic perspective, which is also needed. So now we will take that academic and enhance it with values perspective. So here I'm going to only highlight and just give you a little bit of glimpse on the values approach to looking at these developmental areas. And then we'll also add some words, value words, which means those words which will help us in implementation program. So you will see how it will go, and that will give you a better understanding. Um, Ferry has asked me a question here, whether a teacher or a school must create a condition so that students can practice sealing on desires. Yes, Ferry, children need help unless and until the teacher and school does not work together to create some kind of an environment for them or some scenarios for them. They won't even understand and appreciate sealing on desires. So yes, or just to give understanding about COD, no, not only understanding, you have to help in creating not only the environment but scenarios for them to practice. Let's take it forward and we'll come back to the questions. So next is, let's look at spiritual. The spiritual from values perspective, just definition is to help develop a child's awareness and connection with himself, enabling a self-confident and a self-reliant child. Now, just to give you a little understanding, when you look at spiritual from an academic perspective, there is a prayer in the morning assembly, which is considered to be spiritual orientation. Okay, there can be prayer before eating food. Now, those are activities to be done in a normal manner, which is accepted. But the goal of those activities is the spiritual perspective as to what do we want to achieve by making our children do the prayer, making our children rely on higher supreme consciousness, or to focus within and understand themselves. When I talk about all about me, as we spoke in the last class, then who am I? This is spiritual quest. So when I do that by making them sit silently as a meditation class or a silent sitting class, or if I make them do a prayer in silent contemplation, what is my intent? The intent is not that he should only learn the words of the prayer or he should know how to sit straight, but the intent is to help develop a child's awareness and connection with himself. Why? Enabling a self confident and a self reliant child. Now, the words you look at it is self confidence and truth. So if you are talking about, like, there are programs, as I was mentioning to you before, when you take the program of values orientation, we have value of the week word, value of the month. So these words we integrate and infuse in the whole system of our communication, our talks, and those words are self-confidence, truth. So these are the words which you are getting. So on one hand, we promote these words, we teach them how to use them, we contemplate them, we discuss about them, we help them to understand and live them, and we hope that all these kind of approaches, by praying, by talking about it, we are moving towards child's self-awareness and self-confidence. So this is how we are supposed to look at each and everything. So we'll go quickly. Another one, physical. Now, in the physical development, you have to nourish a child physically and mentally, providing all the elements to ensure his safety, a fit and healthy body, and a sound mental health. Now look at this one. Now, normal, I'm just sharing with you normal physical, what do you call, academic definition of physical is to have physically fit body and children to have be actively participation in sports and games and all that. But from the values perspective, what we look is that we want to nourish a child physically and mentally, because physical world is so interrelated and correlated with the mental world that unless the body and mind are in sync, you cannot help, you cannot have the full development. So as they say, brain and brawn must go together. And why? To ensure safety and a fit and healthy body and a sound mental health. So when you're exercising, when you're playing games, when you're doing any physical activities, be it yogasana, be it dancing, be it any such activity, or you have nowadays aerobics or whatever you may call it, it should lead into fit and healthy body and a sound mental health. Otherwise, physical development has not happened. And for that, the words we promote are like wellness, right conduct. So you can add more words. I'm just giving a sample here. And I would like to see this kind of chart developed by each one of you for your respective schools, and share with me. I would be really grateful, because that helps me to expand, and I would be more than happy to share with each other, so more people can learn from your own contributions and your own journey. So I really request you all to feel free to share, and I would be happy to share with the bigger group and audience. So the next one is intellectual. As I mentioned to you, intellectual development from an academic perspective is excellence in academic studies. The child must learn the subject and understand the subject and learn how to implement the subject. From the values perspective, why do we need that? Is to equip the child with the necessary skills, academic, technical, and otherwise, so that he can excel in any environment, along with the ability to discriminate and to make choices based on the greater good. So, in simple words, you need the child to learn academic lessons, technical skills, and otherwise to be able to become beneficial for the society and the world. If your learning, if your intellectual prowess, if your intellectual achievement does not result in making life of the humanity, of the community, the society at large better, then you have really not been educated. That is actually, in the scriptural sense, it's called like you have thief, you have stolen the knowledge, you have not acquired it. The knowledge must be shared, knowledge must be expanded, given, contributed to the welfare of the society. So the values perspective of intellectual development says that the child must learn to contribute. Child must acquire the knowledge to serve the society. And only then we can certify the child as saying he's intellectually developed child. And the value words for that, we have here discrimination, knowledge, truth, right conduct. These are the words we can discuss. Next, creative. As I said, in the creative element, the academic perspective teaches us that we should insist the children so that they can join, creative arts. They learn the painting, drawing, dance, drama, music, that. But why do they do that? Is to nourish each child's uniqueness and passion in order to motivate and push himself or herself beyond traditional restrictions to accomplish extraordinary feats. Child must have the freedom to express himself or herself while respecting the boundaries of others. So creative element, two things very important here. Creative element is an expression of self. So unless it is unique to you, it is not creative. And the uniqueness comes by self-expression. So I can say that I can recite a poem and somebody else can recite a poem. The poem can be same, but we both have a unique way of understanding and presenting the poem. So our expressions can be unique. And unless and until it is unique, we have not achieved creativity. So creativity is not in making the same painting or reciting the same poem. It is creating a painting in my style, reciting the poem in my style, expressing myself in my style. That uniqueness of the self must be reflected. And unless and until you internalize it, you cannot bring it out as yours. So the creative element, first point, comes from the self. So self focus is very important to be creative. And second, self creativity must respect the boundaries of others. So in my creative excitement, I should not trespass into the boundaries of others and hurt others. Just because I am very creative, I cannot disturb others. So this is another aspect of from values perspective. And the value words to be practiced for this is uniqueness and connected with love. So love is another area for creativity. And the next one is emotional. Now, emotional ability is the child must be able to understand and regulate their emotion. Now, from values perspective, if you look at it, it helps to help raise a child's consciousness and his faith in self to realize that nothing else is lasting and permanent. The importance of emotional stability allows the child to face life's challenge with equanimity. Now, from a values perspective, it is very important for us to understand that what leads to emotional stability and how does emotional stability expressed? How is it expressed? So emotional stability cannot be achieved unless and until the child has self confidence and the faith in the self. See, if somebody calls me, hey, you are a fat guy or you're a bald man, but if I don't have self confidence and I don't have the conviction that no, I have some hair in my head, I'll get irritated. I will start reacting to the criticism, the statements made on me. But if I am convinced about myself, and if somebody comes and says me, I'm the most handsome guy on earth, that should not matter. Or if somebody says I'm the worst person, that also should not matter. Because I should know where I stand and I can be very, very comfortable in my skin. So the emotional stability is not possible unless and until we are seeped and convinced and standing on our self conviction, self confidence. So it realizes from self, and then only you can face the challenges with equanimity. For that, the value words are self confidence, faith, and peace. And the last one, social, oh, two more. Social development. Social development, as I said to you before, it is interaction between the people and the society. So, values perspective says to develop and strengthen a child's appreciation for each other, demographic differences, and enabling his desires to interact, cooperate, and serve. This leads to unity, harmony, concern for all life, and a deep sense of responsibility to society. Now, this social interaction is reinforcing the child's and appreciation for the environment which he's in, and understand the collaboration and the demographic differences. So unity and diversity will again come from social perspective. And the words to be practiced here are empathy, compassion, unity in diversity, understanding, and love. As I said to you, these words are very suggestive. You are free to enter more. So we got these 6 and 7, 8. Yeah. And then two, as I mentioned to you before, let me take you there in the chart. Human values I've already discussed, and self-reliance program is breaking down all the elements of our life and making the child experience it. It's basically practical orientation of all that what we learn becomes in self-reliance. Self-reliance program is the practicals of all the theory learned. So how do you practice togetherness? So by maybe gardening, maybe by joining a club for plumbing, electrical, or maintaining the furniture, creative arts. I had people in Trinidad in schools where we are implementing this. They did all the shields, the medals for the program in house. A teacher volunteered and they made a lab for themselves, and they brought all the waste material, wood and metal and everything, and from there they created their whole school's trophies. So in fact, on their annual day, everything was in-house made, and they did such a good job that I said, boss, you must go and sell it now because it is that you have achieved a level in which the children are not only involved, they are very conscious now. They understand there is nothing called garbage. Everything can be utilized. And that is how these programs of self-reliance can expand into professional life tomorrow, and even help you to become gain job and livelihood. So this is an area of development. So today I have really scanned through it quite fast, I know, but fortunately we are on time. So far, so we have seen, I've given you a big two approaches. The next would be the outcome of it. That will take the next class, in which I would like to share with you, when you do all of this, how do you understand that all this has happened, and how do we measure all of these inputs, so to say. And these inputs are measured with what we call strands, and that we'll take care in the next session. I would look forward to your feedback, and only based on the feedbacks we will be able to plan the future. So far, now I will open the floor for next 5 minutes to if anybody has any questions, any thoughts, any suggestions, then we can discuss it here. So today, so far we have discussed the philosophy of education. The first class, we actually discussed the whole concept of education. We touched upon the importance of a teacher. We looked at the whole need and necessity of why value education is required. Then we looked at the philosophy part of it, which are the foundation of our value system. And these are important to understand from where we get our do's and don'ts of the schooling. We get our regulations and our charter of the school from these philosophies. And then we looked at today the areas of development, and these are the 8 areas which which identify the developmental growth of the child, which every school, every parent must be concerned with. Only when you have these 8 areas of development in your child, we can think of it as a full program. We can understand that, yes, now my child is fully developed. And as a school system, those people here who are in the administrative position of the schools and those who are parents, both sides must be very seriously considering that are we giving due importance to all the 8 areas of development or not? Are we looking at all these 8 areas with the same passion and interest? And are we able to measure it or not? So measuring part is little technical, so we will leave at that, and that can be a personal thing if anybody's interested. But yes, these 8 areas are something which all the parents and all the teachers and especially the administrators of the school must consider. So so I think today we have done a great, we have achieved I didn't expect that I will finish all the 8, but I think we did it. So any questions? I'm just going through the comment section. I do not see any questions. Can you tell me if it was the speed was fine, slow, fast, too much? So you're welcome. I am speaking just to fill the gap. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to come in. If not, then I will only request you all to please share it, share all your journey, as I've given you 2 tasks, and more. I've only received 1 or 2 answers from the previous one. So for the philosophy and for the areas of development, if you have any programs that you're implementing, that I would love you to share it here, and I would be happy to share it with everybody around. You are more than welcome to come and make a small presentation to all our participants and show us how you and your school or as a parent you are able to implement any of these things. And if as a parent you have any questions, you are welcome to ask. No problem. We'll share about that. So if not, then thank you very much. My final request will be this video will again go on the channel. And I sincerely request all of you to please share the link with everybody. And please do and subscribe the channel so that the next sessions intimation can be given appropriately. I don't want to flood you with hundreds of emails. I don't like that myself. So I'm trying to broadcast once through the channel so that it goes to everybody. And then on a private basis, I will share with people. So please go and like the channel, appreciate and share it with your colleagues or your friends, those who you think will be interested in it. And if anyone has any questions or suggestions, feel free to email. Thank you very much, and I wish you all very best. Thank you.